All right, I'm back. Um, yeah, I was talking about that certain things are not calculatable, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's an end of knowledge, like the statement: illegal immigration does not cause unemployment. Highly fake, highly pseudo-intellectual, and I told you that it comes from the terrain or from people in that have science to their degrees: social science, political science, business science, economic science, because they are not in touch with reality. Unlike someone who's an engineer, makes cars or rockets, they their things have to work. The machines that they produce, they have to work. Entrepreneurs, you can have whatever notions. If you're not making money, then it's not an ideal situation. So reality is disproving you, so you need to adapt, change, pivot, or whatever. But that is just the reality. And two worlds, things are measurable. You can have they can have an aggregate representation, like height, human height. You can do something with that average human height. You can build tables. You can say, I'm gonna create half a table that's half the height of an average human, and that table will work, right? Einstein's theories of relativity, they've been used to what? Measure GPS coordinates. So, because that world is sort of at least bounded. We know today is 24 hours, tomorrow there will be another 24 hours. So you can extrapolate things with that. You can deduct certain uses, but you can't generalize that to everything. So that's sort of the bounded world, which is those concepts are engineering, science, mathematics. Those are still hard. And there's this world wherein you have economics, which is complex because so many moving parts. They can't have an aggregate representation. You can't say average salaries. That's useless. Again, I said with inflation, it can be calculated. And anyone who thinks it can be calculated, they are maybe naive. Like I said, we are inductively foolish. I am inductively foolish. Everyone is inductively foolish, but you just can't calculate inflation. There is inflation, but you can't calculate it. Saying you can calculate inflation, it's like saying the weather in 3 provinces in South Africa, their aggregate represents the weather of everywhere in the world at a given time. That is just not possible. They can say the inflation rate is this much. It doesn't really apply to you as an individual. It's not usable. Like you can use average salary. One person earns 5,000, another earns 45,000. The average is 25,000. You can't. That's 25,000 doesn't represent the two individuals, so it's unusable. That you can't aggregate. You can't have an aggregate representation. I can have, and I guess what I'm explaining. It's, to simplify it, it's two worlds: a world where you can measure things, another world where you can't measure, and then this world where you can't measure. People, make all sorts of statements because, well, I guess they can, and they are sort of academia. The great reviewer of life, it's reality itself. It's not reviewers, right? So they call them skyhook theories, concept that you can just put in the air and get people to review them and qualify them. And that's just the pseudo, or at least how that world works. And it's actually quite dangerous. I'm going to back to the point about illegal immigration. So illegal immigration, I was explaining that I've had relatives that were yes, it's anecdotal, but it's anecdotal, and so many other people's experiences. A friend of mine, his car was hijacked. He was harmed a bit, and then that car was found at the border of Mozambique, and you could tell that those people were foreigners, or at least illegal, or at least probably illegal because of the accent, right? So had he lost, he spent a bit of money. He's a business person. He spent a bit of money to just go recover. His business was hampered. So you could say it cost him a bit of loss, and then that loss translates to his businesses and employees, right? That is just that. So you can't say illegal immigration doesn't cause unemployment. That's a false inductive statement. It's inductively foolish. It's a syndrome that we all have, but those who try to academize, build theories around that, they put the world in danger again. Criminals, right? A criminal who's illegal, you can't trace them, so they will steal from people, and people will suffer financial losses, even clinical losses, their bodies harmed, that sort of thing, and their well-being is hampered because they lose properties, and maybe they do business with those properties. Now, we should accept that there are things that we can't measure. Let's say, for example, it's not a controversial one, it's just something that's measurable and not measurable. Let's say someone says they are of one gender, then they identify as the other gender, right? That's in psychology, right? The psychologists will come and say, hey, we know what's going on, blah 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 blah. A man can be a woman, a woman can be a man. Now, when you're using those type of theories, when you are inducting, 5 people are wearing white t-shirts, they are men, and then therefore you will induce that everyone wearing white t-shirts are men. So that's just not true. It's inductively foolish. Now, psychology deals with people's psyche, right? We know a lot of the thinking happens in the brain, but we don't know much about the brain. Even neurosurgeons they know a lot, but there is what they do not know. The brain is very complex, right? Is it 2 billion or trillions of neurons in the brain? A lot is going on there, we don't know. So this field of psychology kind of claims to know, well, it tries to help with people's psychology, but still we don't know much about the brain, or a lot about the brain can't be known. It can't be known because it's a complex system, right? You can't you can deduct certain things, but not everything, right? So you can infer, but you must be careful whatever you're inferring is not dangerous to people. So back to the trans example I was giving. They say in this field of psychology, a man can be a woman, a woman can be a man in their psychology, and the world should accept it. All right, that's a different that's another political argument, but I'm not going to the politics. Now, they take this notion that a man can be a woman, a woman can be a man, and then they say, therefore, like in the example of t-shirts, therefore, if everyone wearing white t-shirts is a man, they say, therefore, you can go and do a surgery that changes their gender, right? Now, it's a complex system. You are inferring that it means something else. From psychology going to biology, now you're going to bully, or at least they bullied the biological field to say this is a healthy surgery, people can do it and it'll be healthy for them. But now again, the brain psychology, it's a complex system. Biology again is a complex system. So you're inferring that and then you're taking this knowledge, I call it pseudo-knowledge, and you're taking to another field with its biology. Again, it's a complex system. Let me start with kids. The trans ideology has created what I call medical pedophilia, right? They went and said it's okay to transition children, but now children cannot give sexual consent. When you are changing someone's maybe you're using hormone blockers, maybe you're doing like a hair surgery. A child, a minor cannot know this concept of complexity. A child cannot give sexual consent, right? and you do those things, I believe now it is a tragedy that it's not being reported, because a lot of these kids have said, hey, they no longer identify as, they're no longer trans, but now they can, some of them can't have children. They've had, some of their body parts, surgery has been performed on them, and that is irreversible. Like illegal immigration, I explained its dangers, and some of those situations can be, they're not reversible. And then you go to, again, with biology and transitioning of children, that can be reversed. Now that's just the first layer. Children cannot give any sexual consent, and blocking their hormones, it's you are committing what I call medical pedophilia. Now there's another layer of there's a term, iatrogenics. Iatrogenics is harm that becomes apparent after the fact of some medical intervention, like a medical intervention that should not have been performed in the first place. Or even you could just be doing, I'm sure there are some dangers to doing breast implant, maybe, or to, a BBL. There are consequences to that, perhaps. I think there are, because biology is complex. You don't try to interfere with it unless it's quite vital, maybe in a medical emergency. And then again, with the trans theory, again, they said because people must be allowed to transition, because why? They commit suicide. Again, 5 men are wearing white t-shirts, therefore everyone who's wearing a white t-shirt is a man, right? So that whole statement, it's a manipulative statement, it's a false statement, it's pseudo-intellectual, right? That in complex system, it's not easy to figure out causation. Okay, someone committed suicide because they identify with another gender, and then they are not allowed to transition, and then therefore allow them to transition because people who commit suicide. That's just utter fraud, intellectual fraud. Now, I'm not making a judgment of someone saying they're trans, but I'm just explaining complexity. Don't infer what you don't know, and don't do things where in results are irreversible. Let's say alcohol as well. We drink, yes, we drink, but it has certain harm. Drinking and driving, you cause an accident, that's irreversible, but that's that. But then again, on the medical side, my more concern is with children, and then again, that whole, you see, with these inductive statements, is that now they build rhetoric around them, and then they canvas them as if it's knowledge, and then it becomes that. Also, I would say with actually everyone who's ideological is very foolishly inductive, severely, because they make these rhetorical concepts and theories, and then they force them, usually they force them down on society, to general populace. All the Marxist or communist ideas have caused deaths of people over the years, 100 million deaths, famine, man-induced sort of famine, because what they say, we know economics, and therefore we're going to instruct the baker to stop making cake, so that they just make bread, and because cake is useless. And then you don't really know whether bread is profitable for that baker. Maybe it's not profitable, and then he covers up with cakes, even though maybe he sells many times less pieces of cake than bread, but the income from cakes, it's quite substantial. I'm just saying, you don't know, so you must leave people to be individual practitioners. Like that top-down type of ideology, it's quite dangerous. Like, decentralize and let people run their own things, right? Maybe I'm gonna make another video on this induction topic. It's quite vast, but for simplicity's sake, there are things on one. Reality is your judger. Reality judges you. You don't create reality, right? An aeroplane has to work. If it doesn't work, then there isn't yet an aeroplane. Someone has to make it. It it can exist. It can exist in concept, but it has to work with reality. But on the other side, things that are immeasurable, certain academics can just infer things that are not measurable. Like illegal immigration does not cause unemployment. That's utter nonsense.